Hey, how about somebody who doesn't play tight?
No.
How about
All gas,
Rhett
no brakes.
Lashlee? Yeah, my boy Rhett does not play tight. Rhett, first I want to know, known you for a number of years. I want to know what Saturday felt like and how much sleep you got, like knowing like what y'all had got to and where you were at, like confidence level and all that. Like how I saw how intense you were on the sidelines. Like, is that how you were all night? Was your poor wife like, was everything tense and tight, or were you like, what the heck, let it rip and we can't control it? How were you?
I was good. Saturday was wild. I got sick Friday afternoon. So Friday night at the hotel, I was in bed and I slept in Saturday. I got up, went to our walkthrough at like 11, got a shot from the doc and went back to bed till 4. So I just laid in bed. I don't ever get sick, but it hit me. But good Lord took care of me. About 5:30 when we got on the bus to go to the stadium, I got good enough to go. And so, no, I was relaxed. I was confident. Our team's been great all year. They show up, they play hard. I knew we were prepared. I thought we'd play well. I know our guys were bummed that we played such a poor first quarter, but I'm intense in general, so that's just how I am. And I also thought maybe some things didn't go our way, and I wasn't real happy about it. But, and then just the way our guys battled when it looked really bad after the first quarter, I was really proud of them. And then, kid kicks it through from 56 at the end, and that's it. It was a quick ending. So, and then we had the 12 hours we had to sit around and wait.
Yeah, that's the part that I imagine had to be the worst.
Yeah, I mean that was a weird mix of emotions, because you know how it is after you lose a game. It's process that you go through all the feelings, and
it's like grieving.
Yeah, it's basically you're grieving the loss of a game. And, what was weird is we hadn't lost since September 6th. So that was a feeling we hadn't felt in a while, which is awesome. But then it was just different because you're by the time you were out of the locker room, your disappointment that we didn't finish and win a championship game shifted to just your unsettled, probably anxiousness about like, well, is that going to cost us an opportunity to be in the playoff, or did we do enough? And feeling like we did enough, but just not knowing what would happen.
Man, I think about this team, Rhett, and where you guys are at. Like a couple years ago, you guys were looking for a conference, and you guys got a proud history. And there's a lot of people that went to your school, that love your school, a lot of successful people that basically laid a foundation and laid a groundwork that said, we're not going to accept this. And you guys might not be in the college football playoff without a lot of those guys getting together in a room and coming up with money to join the ACC. And y'all took sanctions and penalties and gave away like $200 million to get this daggum opportunity. Like, how cool is that? The people at your university that had your back, that gave you an opportunity to do this.
Yeah, it's special, the commitment here and just the alignment, everybody wanting us to be great at football again. And knowing that if we're really good at football and basketball and in sports, particularly in a conference like the ACC, that it elevates the entire profile of the university. To your point, we have a proud history. I mean, Doak Walker played at SMU. Everybody knows about the Pony Express and Eric Dickerson and all those guys. I mean, we won 11 Southwest Conference championships. Southwest Conference was the conference for a long time. And then we had it all taken away. And I'm not saying that we were right on everything we did at 45 years ago or whatever it was, but it was also the worst penalty anyone's ever been given. And there's a reason they haven't done it again. And so our program had to climb all the way back. And when the Southwest Conference broke up, we didn't get to stay in what is now called power conferences. And so I'd say probably 10 years ago, shortly after probably TCU went to the Big 12 and really went all in on football, and then Gary Patterson, that program he built, I think that helped wake a lot of people up here and go, hold on a minute. Like, if they're doing that over in Fort Worth, we know what we can do in Dallas. It's time to get back at it. You know what I mean? And then it's been just slowly ever since then. There was a few coaches that came and made it a little better. June Jones and Chad Morris, and then Sonny and I came at the beginning of his tenure, and then I'm blessed to be the coach now. But, about 5 or 6 years ago, we just started winning, and everyone got behind the program. And so for them to give us the resources to get us into this conference, you said it best. We gave up. People keep saying all these things like we bought it. We didn't buy anything. We just gave up the revenue for some things to get in. which every team does when they join a power conference, but they don't give up all of it. They usually give up percentages of it. And it's a lot of money that a lot of people that care about this university came together and said, we're going to support this program through the next 5 to 10 years so we can be competitive now. And I think you're seeing the results of that.
So, Coach, you obviously were at SMU as the OC for a couple of years, then went to Miami. What was it that made you say yes to go back to being the head guy? Because obviously it was a good experience in that time frame for you to say yes.
Yeah, when I came here with Sonny, our first year we went 5-7, and then the second year we got a quarterback named Shane Bichelle, was pretty good, and we went 10-2, and it was the first time that we had won 10 games since 1982-3, somewhere in there, and it was the first time SMU had been ranked since like 86. I mean, so we saw what had started to happen. The city was starting to get connected then, the Triple D, Dallas, all the stuff that we use in branding was starting to happen. And I got the Miami opportunity, but I had been here just enough to see what could be and kind of be a part of that beginning. And we really liked it here. I mean, I'm from Arkansas, 5-6 hours away. So Dallas is a good fit for us. And so, go down to Miami, and 2 years later when Sonny left and the job was coming open, I felt like I was ready, but I didn't have to be a head coach if it wasn't the right fit, but this felt right. And my family would be excited about it. And just knowing that the commitment was there, but knowing what could be, knowing if we ever got in a power conference, knowing we could win, knowing the next step was to win a championship and that we were going to have the support and all the things we now have. That's what excited me. Now 3 years in, we've done it pretty quick, and that's pretty special.
Well, and it's got to excite you to watch Mr. Jennings run around, because he's fun to watch, man. He really is. Dude's electric. I wouldn't want to chase his little bitty behind. And then obviously with the wrinkles that you guys throw in. But I find this very interesting, Rhett. Kevin Jennings coming out of high school, he was ranked the 1,535th player in the country. 1,500. So he was highly ranked. So you are a genius, because you knew you beat out Lamar and Missouri State and Sam Houston. Like, for a kid that obviously since he's taken over, but beside the Clemson game, that's the first loss. But so much excitement, so much fun. Like, how did he become the kid we see now in your system? And tell us some things about him that we might not know.
I mean, isn't that what's great about college football? You just rattled off he was the 1,500 and whatever. And, right now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And everybody knows who he is now. I'm just fortunate. Like I said, good Lord had me in the right place at the right time. I'd gotten the job, only had it for like a week, maybe 10 days. I can't remember. It's all a blur. But it was like the first game I went to after I got hired around December 1st. It was probably around this time, around December 10th, 11th. And, South Oak Cliff had just beaten Aledo in the second round of the playoffs, which Aledo wins they've won 11 or 15 state titles. Well, South Oak Cliff had just beaten him. It was a big deal right when I got hired. And everyone started to talk, this might be a DISD school that can win a state championship. Well, there hadn't been a DISD, Dallas Independent School District school, win one in 60 years. So I go to this game at the Star where the Cowboys practice on a Friday night to watch the third round playoff game between South Oak Cliff, which is Kevin's school, and Lovejoy. And there's talented players on both sides. And, I really don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm literally trying to figure out how to be a head coach, keep my roster intact, all this. And I've looked on Rivals to find out that the class I've inherited didn't have a quarterback. So I'm like, well, that's cool. They didn't recruit a quarterback. That's not normal. So anyways, I go to this game with our OC, Casey Woods. He'd probably been hired 2 days earlier. I don't even know. And somebody handed me a sheet, said, hey, go look at this corner at Lovejoy, this linebacker. There's a junior receiver at South Oak Cliff. And, oh, by the way, the quarterback at South Oak Cliff's committed to Missouri State. He's pretty good, but whatever. So I go. So I'm really there supporting Dallas, one of the Dallas high schools, looking at some guys, honestly just happy that I'm just watching football and not dealing with all this new head coach stuff. And a first quarter into the game, you're like, I looked at Casey, I go, what am I missing on this quarterback? He's pretty good, And he goes, yeah, he's real good. And so we just kept watching him, and it was just obvious. He was a stud. He was smooth. He was a quarterback. He was throwing the football, back foot hitting, coming out on time, deep ball, perimeter. You get it out quick. He could pull it down though and keep his eyes up when he scrambled. He'd pull his own read and go 30, but you weren't drawn to him because he was a runner. He's just a really good athlete playing quarterback. And then what really was cool is his presence. He'd come off the field and you could just tell, you know how it is. Like, he's the alpha. Like, these guys follow him and no one else. And like, when good things happen, they're looking at him and he's like this. And when bad things happen, they're looking at him and he's like this. And we offered him after that game. Of course, they went on to win the state championship. And a few weeks later, he visited. But what makes him special, man, it's just his DNA. His parents did a great job raising him. He has got the perfect balance of, he's incredibly confident, but he's super humble. Like if you just go out and watch him, he's just like a big kid playing. Like, we were, I think we were at Louisville, and we had the lead at half, 24 to maybe 13. They come back, they tie it 27-all in the fourth quarter. And he's over by the water deal, like dancing to whatever song they're playing in the place. And we're like, Derek looks at me, he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Whatever, man." And then he leads us on the game-winning touchdown drive. Like, he'll throw a pick, he'll come off and be kind of like, "My bad," and he'll go right back out and he'll be ripping it the next play. And he just plays with a very cool calmness, but such a confident demeanor that all the great ones have. And it's hard to put into words, but you know it when you see it.
So, Coach, you mentioned De'Eric. I don't know if many people know that De'Eric King is your quarterback's coach that played at Miami after transferring. Talk about the Miami pipeline that has kind of infused your roster, because I mean, and what specifically two guys. What was it about Elijah Roberts and what was it about Brashard Smith that you said, hey, if these guys get an opportunity here, they can be big time players, because that's what they've become for you?
Yeah, we had some fortunate insider information because we had been there. Whereas in this portal world, sometimes you're predicting and projecting and you're trying to figure it out. With Elijah, after our first year, getting to know Scott Simon's scheme, I knew he knew what he was doing, and we played with a field six technique in his scheme. And we knew Elijah from our time at Miami because he was on our scout team, and we couldn't block him. And he came in to play DN. They were trying to bulk him up to a three technique. He really wasn't a three technique. I mean, he could be, but he didn't want to be. And so we had the benefit of knowing him. And so after our first season, we had to go fix our defense if we wanted to win championships. So he got into the portal, and Guerin, our O-line coach, and I, who had been at Miami, were like, I think Elijah could play here and play that field six technique. Like, we just knew him. And there wasn't a lot of film. In the little film there was, they'd put him in Mario's first year, I think, trying to play him at three technique. And it was okay. But like, I wasn't blaming our defensive staff for not being like, yeah, we want that guy. At the same time, we're like, look, trust us. And sure enough, they did. And he came in, and you talk about a winner. He's one of our team captains. He got more votes than anybody for team captain this year. He's an absolute stud. And he's been a great field six technique for us. He can, do it all. And then, so we had that knowledge of him though. And then with Brashard, it was the same way. We recruited him. We coached him his freshman year. He was behind guys like Mike Harley and Xavier Restrepo. But he was a true freshman, but you could just tell he was
as a receiver.
Yes, as a slot receiver. He was kind of recruited to be that Percy Harvin type player. Like, he's a slot receiver, but he can also run the ball. He's like a running back once he catches it. And we were excited about that. Of course, we didn't get to coach him after the first year, but we did. We played him a little bit as a freshman. We put him in the backfield and flip him a reverse, slide him into the flats, put him on a wheel route. Like, we just get him the ball. And he stayed there our first 2 years here. He stayed at Miami and backed up Restrepo and played, but, he was backing up Restrepo. And so when he goes into the portal, we had about 6 or 7 Miami guys on the team by that point that our coach Brashard wants to come. And we're like, well, that's great, but every one of our receivers are coming back, like literally every one of them. Roderick Daniels Jr., at the time Jake Bailey, who's now been out for the year, but like our top 2 slot, like, we definitely want Brashard, but we don't have a spot, and we don't want to ruin our culture here by bringing him in and ticking off all the wideouts. And so we didn't say no. We just told him we didn't have a spot for a few weeks, which was weird because we knew how good he was. But Coach Cooper, our running backs coach, finally, he just kept saying every day, like, Brashard still wants to come. And I'm like, I know, but like, where we, and our receivers coach, who had been at Miami, he's like, I love Brashard, but like, where are we going to, and I've told this before, we were watching the Chiefs because Rashee Rice was playing as a rookie and had played for us. And this Isaiah Pacheco is running all over the place, catching the ball out of the backfield, just a real versatile player. And I text Coop and I'm like, hey, how much does Brashard weigh? And he texts me back, and we realized he only weighs 10 pounds less than Pacheco. And we were like, could he play running back? He says, let me ask him. He said, hey, you want to come play running back? He's like, yeah. And here he comes. And we didn't really know. We just knew he was a really good player with the ball in his hands. And after the first spring, our defensive staff just said, yeah, that guy's different.
That's awesome. That's cool. How do you, Rhett, like the game's changed so much over the years and you've been in it for a long time. How do you manage the portal situation? How do you, I know parameters are coming. Thank God. Like, thank God soon we're going to have something. Yeah. I mean, you're right. But like, how do give people an idea of like, you used to be able to like recruit and be, I can exhale. Like, this is so awesome. I can chill, spend some time with my family. And now all of a sudden your guys are getting recruited like crazy off of and you got to re-recruit your guys. Like, talk about how you got to build a team now and how frustrating it can be and the challenges that come with it, man.
Yeah. The old saying, you got to worry about the ones that want to be here and not the ones that don't. That's hard to do though as a coach, but you have to. And yeah, it's challenging because you're no longer just recruiting high school kids or some junior college kids. You're also recruiting transfers, and you're also recruiting your own roster. And you're not just doing it like one time a year. You're doing it all the time. Like, you're doing it all the time. And it is what it is. I mean, people are constantly calling people on your team and offering them how much it's going to take to get you to leave. And so it in a lot of ways that all it's different. It's changed. It's crazy. It's chaotic. There's not a lot of stability,
So how do you build this then? How do you bring them together when you get I'll give you this, I'll give you this.
Yeah. So, but what's crazy is different as everything is, still the secret sauce hasn't changed. Because even think when you played and when we were playing, like, and then once you signed, you really couldn't leave, and so you didn't think about it because you couldn't. Think about your coaches that you appreciated the most were the ones that had a relationship with you and you knew they cared about you. And so they could coach you hard. They could be demanding on you. They could hold you accountable if you knew they cared about you. But if you didn't know they cared about you, maybe you respected them back then because they were coached, but it ain't like that anymore. And so the whole, like, you still got to have great relationships, and it's all about that with your players and your staff. Have a healthy staff so your team can do that. And you got to bring in the right ones. That hasn't changed. Now, I'll say this. It doesn't matter. We've been blessed the last 2 years. I think we're 22-5. We've won. I don't know what it would be like if you're not winning. I can't imagine. Because when you're winning, guys buy into what you're doing. They buy into the culture. They buy into the program. And our guys we have a special group that has won 11 last year and now 11 this year. But, like, let's say we're 6-6. Last year we won a conference championship and we were going to the ACC and getting a new facility. That sure helps you keep guys on your team. And they were happy. Our guys are happy. We built a good culture because of the relationships. This year we go to the ACC, we win. Okay, we're in the playoff. That helps. But, like, if you're not doing that, it's a challenge and still a challenge, and you are doing that. So they have to have relationships. They have to trust you. You have to know them. And you also have to resign yourself to the fact that some guys are just going to leave if they're not playing enough, or if they're unhappy, or in the worst case, they want to be there, but the people that kind of dictate what they do don't want them to be there. So it's unique, but I think at the end of the day, the only way to do it is to do what we love to do. It's care about the guys, build a relationship, gain their trust. They know we care about them, so we can go through those times together.
So, Coach, you had one of those Murphy's Law type games at Duke with the turnovers, and outside of learning that Jafari Harvey can jump like a madman and get up and block a kick, what did you learn about your team in that game specifically that kind of helped you finish things out?
What I learned, we do have a mature team, and we're blessed from the guys that came back from last year's team. What I learned is we do have a resilient bunch who, they believe they're going to win every game, and they're going to keep playing with the thought that we're going to win. Like, they do. Now, that obviously, like last week, that doesn't always happen, but you saw how they fought at the end. Like, they fully knew we were going to come back and win that game. So they've created that habit and that togetherness and resiliency. I think the cool part was, and to David's point, we're a true team, and the kids deserve the credit. Like, they love each other. They play for each other. OD teams, like they compete with each other, not against each other, and that's a fine line. And so, like in that game, I mean, we were a turnover machine on offense. I mean, Kevin turned it over 5 times. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, at 5th or 6th time, I think I probably said on the headset, he turned it over again. Like and at some point you're like, we're just not going to win tonight. Like, we have given this game away, and I don't know how to make it stop other than for it to end. You know what I mean? And so, and all 6 turnovers, they scored 0 points off those turnovers. And I don't see it as much, but all our coaches after the game were like, you guys don't even understand. Like, our defense would come off after a stop, and it felt like 3 plays later, we turned it over on like our own 35. And the defense just grabbed their helmet and run right out there. They didn't gripe. They didn't go, come on, Kev, come on off. You guys get it together. They weren't coming over to the offensive.
They were pissed. They just didn't do it.
Huddle. Yeah, they weren't coming over to the offensive huddle and go, how about you guys figure it out? None of that. They just went out and played. And when it looked like they were about to kick the game winner, they just executed kind of a desperate situation block we had, and they just played. And so they have that, and they did that the other night. They weren't pointing fingers. We put our defense in a lot of bad positions in the first quarter, and they scored 21 points because of it. And our defense never flinched, and our offense kept playing. And so they've just had a real resiliency together, and that's what we learned that day at Duke.
Well,
and no matter what the situation, they're going to fight.
Yeah, and I love the way y'all responded last week, because that same thing could have happened. And strip sack, and they still score touchdown with a guy downfield. By the way, that rule.
Two guys downfield.
Yeah, two linemen downfield. We talked about it on the show. Don't you worry. But the team fought back, and 17 unanswered in the fourth quarter to be right there. What's the first thing? What's the first thing that stood out? And I'll let you get out of here because I know you got better things to do than hang out with us. What's the first thing that popped off the tape when you saw Penn State?
Their speed. You're from the SEC country. I grew up in SEC country. I play in ACC country. Like, their speed in the South. A lot of times you kind of look at Big Ten teams and go, okay, they're big, they're physical, but they're not as fast. That ain't the case with this Penn State defense now. They can roll. Like, they got a lottery pick, a top 10 pick at defensive end. They got experienced D tackles. They got backers that can run. They got 2 really good safeties. But their whole team speed on defense, you'll watch the film against an Oregon offense or an Ohio State offense that has speed, and those offenses don't look fast because the defense is just as fast. And so, from an offensive standpoint, that's what stood out to me about their defense. They can run. They can really, really run at every position. And then offensively, I mean, they got maybe have the best player. Their tight end is unbelievable. And big-time quarterback.
He's not a tight end. He's a quarterback. He's a running back. He's a receiver.
And that's why he may be the best player in the country. Like, there's not a matchup in man. There's not a zone. There's not a triangle and 2. There's nothing you can do to feel good about covering that dude. And again, you don't even know where he's going to line up. And, they got a big O-line. They got 2 really good backs, good receivers, an experienced quarterback, and an incredible play caller. Like, they're very multiple. They do a lot to stress you. So that's before you even talk about 106,000 at Beaver Stadium. So, yeah, that's what stands out. They're really good.
What do you do for the weather, Rhett? Lone Star Dog asked, weather concerns. Obviously, it's pretty gorgeous where you're at, and how do you prepare for that?
We're fortunate, Lone Star Dog. Last week we played in Charlotte where it was cold. Well, we had 2 days last week. We go in the mornings, so we're usually on the practice field by 8:15, and we had 2 mornings last week that were in the high 30s. So we went outside and practiced, and we're lucky tomorrow morning we're going outside. It's going to be 40-41 at 8 o'clock, and so we're getting enough this time of year, and we do have a noon kick. So even if it's 30, 35, 40, it's going to be in the day with the sun out. Hopefully, that's the best we can do. I don't think the cold weather bothered our guys in Charlotte. We didn't play well at times, but I don't think that was it. And it's a great question. If we were playing in South Florida, we'd probably be going in the indoor tomorrow, but we're not. So we're going to go outside.
Well, Coach, you've been first class for a long time. Always respected you and the way you carry yourself, and there's not a surprise why you guys are here. But we appreciate your time. Now get back to your family and the important things, and we'll holler at you again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.